Darian Devries admits that Indiana basketball has a problem at the center position. Oh boy.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, it is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Well, thank you so much for being here. Happy June. We are into the summer and continuing on with Locked On Hoosiers. We'll talk later on in the show about the 5+11 college football playoff format that apparently is gaining steam, and the SEC is just trying to make everybody mad along the way. Plus, if you're not good defensively, how can you win offensively? Which one's going to be better for Indiana basketball, the offense or the defense? And we asked that question because Darian Devries, the head coach of Indiana basketball, who apparently is making waves back in West Virginia for the way that he left things, more on that later on in the week, but he admits that the Hoosiers have a problem at the center position. He says that this team is going to have some issues when it comes to size. And this is something that a lot of you Indiana fans have been talking to me, yelling, not at me, just in general, about Indiana being undersized and how they needed to go and find a center in the transfer portal. You have to have size to compete in the Big Ten, you have said. You have to have size to be able to hold your own across college basketball against some of these non-conference teams and just have big men to operate. And I totally agree. I don't think it's live or die, but I do think you need to have something down there to be able to compete, especially against some of the guys you're going to be playing in the Big Ten. These quotes from Darian Devries probably don't give you a whole lot of confidence. The one that sticks out to me says, quote, "We're a little undersized at the 5 spot." He talks about how he understands they don't have a 7-footer down there to be a true rim protector, to be someone you can dump the basketball to on the offensive side of the floor. And I'm trying to figure out whether I like that he admits that they know they have an issue or whether he's saying that to cover his own rear end. I don't know. I guess we're just going to have to find out. But I know that this is going to upset many of you Indiana fans because, again, you've been screaming this from the rooftops for months now. Since he got here, go get a big man, go get a big man, go get a big man, because Oumar Ballo obviously wasn't coming back. Malik Reneau wasn't coming back. You didn't have a whole lot. And you tried, you just didn't get the true 7-footer that a lot of you were looking for. I do want to remind you, though, you do have Reed Bailey, who's 6'10", and you bring in Sam Alexis from Florida, who is 6'8". I know they're not 7 feet tall, but you do have guys who can play at the center position. But I don't love DeVries saying, yeah, we're undersized. We know that we're not going to be able to compete in terms of big men down low. We understand that. We've accepted that. We're going to find ways around that, right? I don't like that. I don't love it. I really, really don't. But he did go on to say, we have ways to overcome it. We have ways to fix it. And he started talking about having big guys down low, and just being a rim protector doesn't mean shot blocking all the time or just being tall and sticking your hands in the air. He said there are different ways to be effective. That's moving your feet. That's having help defense. That's getting out to shooters. That is grabbing rebounds. That's limiting second chance, third chance, fourth chance opportunities on the defensive end of the floor. Then you move to the offensive side, and it's, okay, let's spread the floor a little bit. Mid-range jumpers are a way to do that. Or being able to pass out of the low block. That's a huge part of it, too. Something we really didn't see from Malik Reneau and Oumar Ballo a year ago. You dumped it down low, they were going to the basket. Whether they scored or not, I don't know. But they weren't the best passers, in my opinion. and look at the NBA nowadays. That's the comparison I have for like a Nikola Jokic, who he could score 50 points a night if he wants to, or he could rack up 10, 12, 15 assists because they give it to him and then he finds the open man and he finds somebody on the outside. That's what Indiana can do this year with guys who are, quote, undersized. And so, should you be concerned with this? Should you be worried about Indiana not having a true big man and your head coach admitting that? Maybe, maybe. I think it's okay to be like, oh boy, here we go. Right. Right. It's okay to say, man, I hope he has a plan. I hope there is something in place here to truly overcome this problem, this issue, because that's what it is. It is a legitimate problem because what you guys have talked about, you being the listeners and the watchers and the fans here, is there's some dudes in the Big Ten that we're going to see this year. There's going to be some big guys that give us trouble on both ends of the floor. And later on, we're going to talk about offense versus defense, which one will be better and where they have to rank for Indiana to be competitive this year. But you can't fake size. You can't just go around it. You can't just go over it. You can't just go away from it because some of these teams will have multiple big men. Some of them will have multiple guys who are 6'10, 6'11, 7 feet tall. And you have to find a way to truly overcome that. Good shooting can do it, but are you going to bank on that every game on the road, every time you get your guys in foul trouble? Are you going to bank on good shooting every single night? It's a bold strategy. What happens if you do get in foul trouble? Then what do you do when they're just dumping it down low, and you feel like there's nothing you can do other than hack a shack? Then what do you do? There will be problems. There will be issues. And it's on Darian Devries and this staff to figure it out. Again, I think Reed Bailey is a fine option to play down low, but he can't play for 40 minutes. You're going to have to find some sort of a rotation to play down there. I think Sam Alexis is going to have to get some minutes down there, and somebody's going to have to be a stretch five, which sounds crazy, but you're going to have to take somebody from the 4 and play them at some minutes at the 5 and just go and run a smaller lineup. And what you lack on defense, you have to make up for on offense. And I think that's where the Hoosiers are going to be this year. I think this will be an offensive team. Which one will be better? We can talk about that. But DeVries admitting, again, we're a little undersized at the 5 spot. We may have some issues in terms of rim protection. That's scary, man. It really is. And I know this is something that so many of you have talked about. I do want to say, though, that West Virginia was undersized last year with Darian DeVries as their coach. They were undersized and still had a really good defense. They had a pesky defense because they poke the basketball. They face guard. They just taunt you. They get all up in your grill, and they play heavy style of defense. Indiana has to do that this year. For what you lack in size, you have to make up with effort. And I think Indiana 1 through 4 is going to be just fine with size. It's just the big guys down low. Help defense will be a crucial piece to this team. When they dump it down low and they get it on the low block, you've got to bring somebody from the weak side. Double them and make them give it up, and then you've got to recover and you got to do all of that, yes. But I think it will be okay. But DeVries admitting that there's an issue there concerns me just a little bit. But the question now becomes, which one will be better, the defense or the offense? And which one needs to be better for Indiana to win games and make it to the NCAA tournament? We talk about that next right here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever check your bank account and wonder, man, where the heck did all my money go? Between dining out and online shopping and just spending, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building your wealth. The biggest thing for me is if you have a partner, if you and your loved one are trying to manage all your money, get all your accounts in order, and get on the right track, Monarch Money is the way to do it. Your personal account, you can set your goals and you can stay on the same page without all the stress. All right. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. And I know these comments may have some Indiana fans fired up and saying, great, here we go. It's already beginning. It's already starting. We haven't even played a game yet in the college basketball season, and we already got excuses or concerns or worries about this team. I understand. I'm going to ask you to pump the brakes a little bit. I'm going to ask you to give Darian Devries a chance here because I believe he's a really good coach. And I think he's a winner. He's been a winner pretty much everywhere he's been. And this roster was thrown together rather quickly. And they had to because they showed up with absolutely nothing. They had a high school recruit. That's it. They had Trent Sisley. That's all they had. And so they had to put something together that they felt was competitive, but one that they could also get their hands on too. And reminder, this team went after some dudes and just didn't land them. Emeka Opurum is the one that comes to mind immediately. The big guy who, I believe he ended up going Auburn, I think, is where he went. And so you went after some and just didn't get them, but you still have some really, really good dudes. And again, I think 1 through 4, in terms of just your size and your physical abilities in terms of competing with the other schools in the Big Ten, I think 1 through 4, you're going to be just fine. It's just having lack of size at the 5, which, yes, is very, very crucial, but you can overcome it. And so when you think of, okay, undersized at the 5 position, what comes to your mind first? I'm asking you right now, the listener and the watcher. When I say this team is undersized at the 5 position at the center spot, do you think of offense or do you think of defense? Does offense concern you more or does defense concern you more? Do you get more worried about, oh, we're not going to have a post presence, we're not going to grab offensive rebounds, we're just going to have to shoot our way through games? Or do you worry about the defensive side of the floor of, man, we have no rim protector, we have no shot blocker, they're just going to get to the open lanes, they're going to get to the rack, we're going to have to foul, we're going to be moving all over the place, they're going to throw alley-oops, they're going to be doing all sorts of mess. Which one comes to your mind first? Because I'm curious on where you stand. I think I go to defense first, but it's hard not to consider the offense based off of what we've seen for the past several years, especially under Mike Woodson, where that's pretty much all we had were big men. Khalil Ware, who's playing in the NBA, you can even go back to Trace Jackson Davis, and then, of course, Umar Ballo and Malik Renew. That's what we had was big men. Our guards, they weren't good. And so you had to focus and force the basketball down low to the big guys and just hope that they could score enough points. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't because 2 is less than 3. And for any team that was halfway decent or had any sort of life behind the 3-point line, they typically beat us in the past. And so I think there's this idea of not having a true big man can slow you down offensively. And I just don't think that's true. I think this team's going to be quick. I think this team will be lightning fast in terms of what they're trying to do and executing their offense. And I think it's going to start off a made basket, off a missed basket, off a turnover. Doesn't matter whether they're inbounding it or just outletting it off of a rebound. This team's going to run. And DeVries has told us this. He has told us so. We're going to push the basketball. We're going to run. We are not allowing the defense to get completely set up and play 5-on-5 basketball. If we can score in the first 10 to 12 seconds of the possession, that's what we want to do. And folks, I like that. I like how that works because, man, The offense has been terrible the last couple of years. It's been horrible. All you've had were two big men down low that could score, and you would score 65 points a game while the other team scored 85 points a game. You need some sort of threat other than the painted area, and Indiana's going to have that this year. And think about it this way. If you're looking to run, if you're looking to push the ball, having a massive guy out there, a 7-footer, makes that really, really tough because, yes, some of them can move extremely well for their size, but they can't keep up with what Indiana is going to be doing if they play the way I think they're going to. Now, they may change it up and surprise us a little bit, but I just feel with the dudes on this team, with the ability with so many of them to handle the basketball and be the primary ball handler or even the secondary ball handler, and the shooters that you're going to have on this team, I just think we are going to get out and absolutely run, sprint up and down the floor. And I love it. I absolutely love it because remember, here are some of the numbers on 3-point shooters from where they were last year at their previous stop that are transferring in. You've got DeVries at 47%, Wilkerson at 45%, Drake at 40% from downtown. You've got Nick Dorn at 35%, Connor Enright 32.5%, Miles at 33.5%, Harris at 33%, several dudes above 40%, and a whole lot more in the 30s behind the arc. You have guys that can shoot. Gone are the days of hit or miss from Trey Galloway, Miles Rice never shooting, and Cannon Carlisle watching from the bench. Gone are those. That we're not have to worry about that anymore. You've got dudes who can shoot. You have dudes who can score. And that is 1 through 4. On top of somebody like Reed Bailey, who I still think is going to be effective down low offensively and defensively. And so I think it is fairly obvious right now to say and predict that the offense will be better than the defense next year for Indiana basketball. I think you're going to have some track meets. I think you're going to have some shootouts, some ones where, man, if we didn't give up 93 points, we might have won that game. Or, man, thankfully we scored 98 points because our defense wasn't stopping a whole lot, right? It just seems that on paper, offense is what jumps out to me. But we can still be good defensively because Darian Devries wants to be good defensively. Again, his West Virginia team a year ago was one of the better ones in the country off efficiency numbers alone. They were a good defensive team, and you don't have to just block 1,000 shots per game like Indiana did last year to be considered a good defensive team. What I consider good defense is communication, move your feet, no open shooters, and limit their possessions. Limit the shots they get on each trip down the floor. Second, third chance opportunities can happen. Indiana let that happen a year ago. Let them be one and done every time down the floor. Communication has to be key. Get out to shooters. No open guys. You can't be looking around and they find the open man and we're still scrambling, looking around, trying to figure out why we're playing 4-on-5. We can't be doing those sorts of things. And then defend without fouling. Stay in front of your guy. If you get beat, let him go. Somebody else can come over and help, but don't get the silly fouls that we saw Indiana get last year, because this year more than ever, way more important than a year ago, your big men, the ones that you have this year, they cannot get in foul trouble. You can't afford it. Reed Bailey cannot afford to get in foul trouble this year. He can't be Malik Reneau and watch the game from the sidelines because he can't quit hitting people. That just can't be the case, because if so, Indiana will be in trouble. You can run those smaller lineups. You can run the undersized 5-man rotation for a little bit, but that can't be a 40-minute strategy. Not in the Big Ten, not in Power 5 basketball. You will get beat over time. So fouling will be a big part of it too. So if those things can happen, or if you can avoid the bad things that I just mentioned right there, the defense can be good. It can be fine. It can be good enough. If the defense is top half in the Big Ten, top half, and the offense is top 5, Indiana's going to be a solid team. Indiana will be a tournament team. Indiana will be a dangerous team. But if the defense lacks once more, if you give up a bunch of points and easy buckets, you get in foul trouble, there's no communication, and you just get in shootouts and you can't win, right? If the offense can't knock down shots, if you do struggle down low with the, quote, lack of big men or the issues that you have down there, it could be a long season for Indiana. It could be a long year. if you turn the ball over on offense, right, not forcing turnovers on defense, it's another big part of this too. It could be a long year. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think if you're a top half defensive team in the Big Ten and you're a top 5 offensive team, I think you'll have a good season with Indiana. But DeVries says there's an issue at the 5 spot. He has a plan, he says. We'll see if it's going to be good enough for Indiana to win some games in year number 1. All right, coming up here in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, flipping over to football because the 5+11 college football playoff format starting to gain steam. Expansion's inevitable at this point. We'll talk about that coming up next here on Locked On Hoosiers. All right, final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again so much for being here. And if you're listening on audio, thank you for doing that on your various podcasting platforms, Spotify, Amazon, however you listen every single day. Thank you so much for doing that. And just make sure that you are following us on there. You have your notifications turned on. And I ask that you send it to someone who you have not sent it to already. Send it to an Indiana fan in your family, at your work, at your kid's daycare. I don't really care. Whoever it is, send it to somebody that is not listening, that you've never sent it to, and have them become an everydayer. And if you're watching on YouTube with the video side of things, you know the drill. Hit that thumbs up and like the video. Tells me that you enjoy what we're doing over here. Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments as well on, does Indiana truly have a big man problem? I want to hear your thoughts down below, and then subscribe to the channel if you have not already. All right, so final segment. We're talking a little football because it's more expansion stuff. It's more playoff stuff. And the fact that this whole 5+11 idea is being pushed by the SEC, and it all stems from the idea that expansion is inevitable. Expansion is coming. More teams will be making it to the college football playoff in the next several years. That's just kind of where we are. And there's all these different ideas and all these different formats and ideas and different ways of doing it, right? Of, well, I think this model's the best way to go. Well, I think this model's the best way to go. Well, us out here in that West Coast, we think we should do it this way because we want to get this amount of teams in. And man, it's exhausting, right? It's exhausting to be constantly evolving and changing and trying to make it better for one party in particular, mainly the conferences, whether that be the Big Ten, the SEC, all the other conferences combined. It's just, at this point for me, just pick one and stick with it. At this point, I don't even care. It's going to change again anyway, right? They're going to go from this 12-team playoff that we've had for one season, 1 year, and they're already trying to change it. They could even get the 12-team playoff, right? Because they just changed how they're going to seed them. Now it's actually going to be based off the rankings, and last year was just the guinea pig year, which I think is insane. So we're going to have another year of this. Then we're going to try and go to the 16-team playoff, and that's where this 5+11 format comes in, where you have your 5 automatic qualifiers from each big major conference, right? The Power 4, and then a group of 5, and then everybody else would be the at large. You've got I wrote it down because I can't remember all this. 4-4-2 1-1-1-1. The 16, where you'd have 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten, 2 from the Big 12, 2 from the ACC, 1 from the group of, isn't it like the group of 6 now or something like that? And then the other 3 would be the at large, or the other 3 would be at large. Dude, I don't know. I mean, it's so whack to me. And I understand the SEC and the Big Ten feel that they deserve to have more teams in than any other conference on every single given year. I understand where they're coming from. But to be completely honest, I don't really care. From a college football perspective, just rank the teams and put them in there. Why do you have to have conference affiliation? Why does there have to be set in stone who makes it and how many make it from a specific conference? Because all we're doing is making each other angry. The SEC and the Big Ten have absolutely just ruffled the feathers of every other conference in America, including the ACC and the Big 12, who feel that they're being shafted for obvious reasons, but they feel like they're being shafted. And so why not just rank the teams and put them in a playoff? That would make too much sense, right? That would make way too much sense to crown a true national champion. And the SEC and the Big Ten want to make the most money. They want to make more money than anybody else because they feel that they deserve it. And they have an argument. I'm not saying they don't. I'm just saying at this point, just find something and stick to it. I've told you this in the past. From the Indiana perspective, the 4 guaranteed spots for the Big Ten is the best way for us to almost ensure we make it. Not every single year, but every other year, every 2 out of 3 or something like that, if our program continues to take the trajectory that it's on and continue to grow, right? The idea that 4 Big Ten teams automatically have to make it every year, yeah, that benefits the Hoosiers greatly. But this 5+11 format may or may not benefit us as much because you'd have your 5 guarantees and the rest of them would just be based off the rankings. And look, at that point, be a top 10 team. Be a top 10 team in college football, and you'll make it to the college football playoff. Easier said than done, of course, but that's where it is. And so which one's going to happen? I don't know. And then they'll do 16. They'll be upset about that. They'll go to 24. They'll go to 48. They'll go to 64. Heck, they're talking about expanding the college basketball tournament right now. They want to expand that to 72, 74, 78, something like that. I don't know. Expansion's annoying, man. I'm over it. I'm over the conversation, but it's never going away because more teams means more games, and more games mean more money. And that's just where we are with college sports. Why worry about crowning a true national champion when we could just make everybody happy and give everybody a trophy and make sure that the conferences get paid? I don't know. Expansion's good for Indiana football, though. From our perspective, the more teams that get in, the better chance we have to make it if our program continues to be relevant. I think it will be. And honestly, we're just going to have to see where all this goes. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Again, thank you so much for being here. Cannot stress enough how much fun we're having, how much work we're putting in, and really just getting the results. And so you're the reason for that. And thank you so much as we are kicking off the month of June. Just again, make sure that you are following us and have your notifications turned on. If you're listening to it on audio or if you're watching on YouTube, like it, comment, and subscribe. Okay, we are back tomorrow, Hoosier fans, for another episode. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.